All right, let's talk about something that's probably on your mind if you're working with large language models: prompt optimization. And no, this isn't just about tweaking a few words here and there. We're talking about a completely different, way smarter approach to how you ask for things, one that's going to save you time, money, and get you much more reliable results.
Okay, be honest. Does this look a little too familiar? You spend forever crafting this one giant, perfect prompt. You throw every single question, every little task into it, just hoping the LLM will magically sort it all out. It feels like you're being super efficient. But are you really?
And then this happens, right? You hit run and you just wait. The progress bar crawls, you can almost hear the API costs ticking up, and you're stuck just sitting there. This is such a classic sign that you're asking the LLM to do jobs that it really wasn't built for.
So here's the core issue, and it's actually pretty simple. When you bundle every single task into one massive prompt, it's just plain inefficient. You end up paying top dollar for a super powerful model to do really simple stuff, which not only costs a ton, but can also give you wonky results when the model gets bogged down.
But what if, and this is the big idea, what if we could be smarter about this? What if we could filter our questions before they ever even touch the API? What if a bunch of your tasks could be handled with, a simple bit of code instead of needing this complex AI to figure it out?
And that brings us to this core concept: thinking before you ask. It's all about separating your questions into two totally different buckets. You've got the simple, straightforward tasks on one side, and on the other, the really complex questions that actually need the horsepower of an LLM.
Let's define that first bucket. We're going to call them quantitative questions. Think of these as the predictable, formulaic tasks. Questions like, hey, what was our total revenue for Q2? Or how many users signed up last week? If you have the data, these can almost always be answered with code.
And then on the other side of the coin, you have qualitative questions. Now, this is what these amazing LLMs were built for. They require real interpretation, judgment, and some complex reasoning. This is for questions like, based on this report, why did our sales dip? Or give me 3 strategic recommendations to boost engagement.
This slide just lays it all out, nice and clear. Over on the left, you've got the stuff that's perfect for code, just pulling numbers, doing simple math, finding facts. But on the right, that's the heavy lifting, the stuff that needs a brain, interpreting patterns, explaining the why, and making those big predictions. The whole goal here is to stop sending the simple stuff on the left to the sophisticated and expensive tool on the right.
So you're probably thinking, okay, that makes sense, but how do I actually do that without just creating a ton more manual work for myself? Well, that's where a tool called the Prompt Optimizer comes into the picture. You can think of it like a smart traffic cop for your LLM tasks. So what's it actually doing under the hood? It's pretty smart. First, it analyzes your prompt to figure out what you're really asking. Then, it actually looks at your data samples to see if those quantitative questions can for sure be answered with code. Finally, it just gives you this perfectly structured output, neatly separating the tasks to automate from the ones you really do need to send to the LLM.
Okay, sounds cool in theory, right? But what does it actually look like to use it? Let's do a quick walkthrough.
And honestly, it could not be simpler. It's just 4 steps. You give it your API key, you paste in that same big old prompt you were already using, and then you upload 2 sample data files. You need 2 so it can check for consistency. Then you just hit Optimize, and boom, you get your results.
Now here's something that is absolutely crucial, especially if you're dealing with sensitive data. This tool is built with privacy as a top priority. It all runs right there in your browser, what they call client-side. That means your API key and your data are never, ever uploaded to some external server. That's a huge win for security.
So you've run your prompt through the optimizer. What's the actual result? What's the big payoff for taking this little extra step? Let's take a look at a real example.
Just look at this number, 12. In an example run with a pretty complex prompt, the tool found 14 quantitative questions, and it figured out that 12 of them, that's almost all of them, could be answered reliably with simple code, totally bypassing the LLM API. That is a massive workload being offloaded.
The benefits you get are immediate and they are huge. First, your API costs are going to nosedive because you're only paying for the tough stuff. Second, your runtimes get way, way faster. Local code is always quicker than waiting on an API call. And finally, your results are often more reliable and accurate because you're using deterministic code for deterministic questions. Simple as that.
So the next time you're building an LLM app,
I want you to just pause for a second. Before you fire off that giant do-it-all prompt to the API, just ask yourself, which of these tasks are quantitative and which ones are truly qualitative?
And that really is the question to leave you with. By just shifting your mindset a little bit and using tools that help you think before you ask, just how much time, money, and frankly, frustration could you be saving on your own projects?